Already started the recording. Nice, Mark. Oh, hold on.
I got the beach background. I figured I'd.
I was this close to wearing my Top Gun coat because it's Top Gun Day.
There we go. Not only is it Top Gun Day, it is Tuesday, and it is time for Talk Time with TJ Triple T, number 176 on May 13th, 2025. And we are live. My name is TJ Zebel. I like to refer to myself as a professional problem solver, and I always follow that up with no, I don't know everything. I just have a unique way of asking questions and helping people find the solutions they are looking for. I want to do a shout out to our crowd on YouTube and say, hi, Mom. And for all of you on YouTube, please do me all of the YouTube favors at no cost to you, but sure helps me out. Click the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave comments, especially if you like the content. Please leave comments and comment on other people's comments. If you don't like the comment or the content, do me a favor and go to somebody else's profile and comment there. Just saying. And please share these videos. We don't do this for our glory. We're a community that likes to help people. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people that can use our help. And I have a website that you can go check out some of the stuff that I get to do. TheTSWB.com, the tall, skinny white boy. That is I, and I am he, and that is me, and I've been that person since way before the internet. So take that, internet. But on there, you'll find a few things that I'm privileged to get to do. I get to help people with depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD, grief. I do offer corporate coaching. I get to work with athletes from beginner all the way up to pro level. And what else? I do a lot of relationship work. A lot of relationship work. So if you know anybody that is trying to find their special somebody and they're having a little challenge, or they seem to be dating the same loser in a different meat suit, have them give me a call. I do offer a free, that's right, no charge to you, 30-minute consultation. And that's your opportunity to chit chat with me for 30 minutes, and we can go over what is challenging you. And I'll make you a promise. If I think that I'm a fit and I can help you, I will let you know. And also, if I feel we are not a fit and I think you would be better helped by somebody else, I will not only let you know, I will do my best to find the best person for you. Let's see, I guess it's time to introduce the tie of the week, something I started back in the very first Triple T of 24, and we're still going strong. So this week, got a lot of Mickeys.
It's so cute.
Yeah. Kind of a funky tie. It's definitely a little overbuilt. Holy shnikes, Batman. Could hang my truck from this thing, but may come in handy someday. If you're new to Triple T, or the first time you're watching the recording, quick rundown the way this works. It goes for 2 hours. And I do my very best to keep it at 2 hours, even though people that know me know that I could teach for about 18 hours straight, even with no sleep, because that's just what I like to do. But the way we do it, the first hour, I do my best to get through 3 topics, which can sometimes be a challenge. And then the second hour is open topic, open mic. Anybody with a question or a topic can bring it up, and I let anybody on the call answer first because I like to answer. I like to learn as well. And if after that I feel like I still have something to add to the topic, that's when I offer up my 2 centavos for whatever those are worth. And we go from there. But I also like to start off the evening with asking those of you on the call, tell me something good. Tell me something good from, hey, Holly, right out of the gate. What's up, Holly? What?
So it's been a roller coaster of a week, but I had this really kind of cool insight. I don't know if any of you have ever watched gem cutting videos. I went down this gem cutting video corner of the internet for a little while, and I found this guy who cuts opals. And anyway, he has this sign that I think might become one of my new catchphrases. It says, "I'm going in." And basically what it is, when he's polishing and cutting these gems, getting them to just the right size. So first of all, when you first start out, you've got the obvious rough stuff that's not worth anything that you're cutting off.
Yeah.
But when you're dealing with the really, really fancy stuff, you want it to be the exact right size, perfect polish, everything. And you want to get down to the lower stuff that might be more valuable. You get this place where you're actually cutting back stuff that's, and you might be trying to save it and make it into something else, whatever, but you're cutting into stuff that's already valuable because you're looking for something even more valuable that might be inside. And of course, it's also a little bit of a risky, this is and so anyway, he'll have that moment where he'll say, "I'm going in," and it's, takes your breath away a little bit because it's, oh gosh, here we go. But yeah, I was just thinking about how appropriate that is for our lives, that we have that level of, maybe when we start out, we've got the stuff that's obvious. That's this is the crud that I want to for sure get rid of. But sometimes you also have to sacrifice now I'm actually getting something to beautiful, but do I need to dig in even deeper to find something even more beautiful? And that doesn't mean that I'm wasting what's beautiful, but yes. Anyway, I thought that was kind of cool.
That is super cool. Wait till you hear the tie-in to tonight's topics. I know you're shocked. Who else has something good to share? Mark.
Like I said earlier, I was watching a little Dr. David, and he reminded me of things that I had forgotten that I knew. But I said, when you're just driving along, or you're in a good place and a less than positive, a real shitty memory pops up, and what do? I don't want to think about that now. The subconscious has been holding on to it to be processed, but he reminded me that it takes as much energy to suppress that lousy memory as the memory has, because that's the only way you can suppress it, to shove it back down. I don't want to think about that now. And that if you can get rid of that less than positive memory, you free up energy to use elsewhere in becoming. So, like I said, he reminded me, when we can teach the subconscious to let go of a less than positive memory, now we get all that energy that it was using to hold on to that, so you don't have to suppress it, so you're not using energy for that, and you're not holding on to that energy to keep that memory in our subconscious. So that was like, oh damn, I'd forgotten that.
That's why I always tell people, what are the 3 most expensive words when you have a chance to, or an opportunity to learn something? I know that. Somewhere along the line, somewhere along in the class or something, you've heard it 100 times and it got lost in the file cabinet. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, oh man, I can't believe I forgot that nugget. Yeah, that was awesome. Cool, cool.
And he said that when you can start to unpack that memory, he goes, it's not the memory. He goes, you have to tell yourself, if you're doing the self work, dig deeper. So I spent a few minutes, a couple of things popped up, and I was like, oh, okay, dig deeper. And I found an insight, of why as a kid, I had been afraid of the dark. And there was an incident with other kids my age, and I had been locked in a closet. And that's where but I had to dig deeper to recall why I had that fear, that unconscious fear. I don't have it anymore. I get rid of it. So
There you go. Just like old luggage. Gosh, what did I leave in here? Dirty old socks. Yep, don't need that anymore. Lenora.
I wanted to say it's not so much like a super positive update, I think it's a positive update, but other people might say no. I would like to thank the wonderful TJ. I was having a very difficult time today, and I sent him a message a little bit distressed. Something that is a wonderful feature of being Lenora is being highly empathic and relating a little too closely to people. And the reason I'm thanking TJ is because he manages to magically think clearly and also make time for emergency situations, which I was very appreciative for. So my day completely shifted, and then it completely shifted again in the last 2 hours. So thank you, TJ, for being available in the very distressed moment that I was experiencing.
You're very welcome. That's what we do.
Could not figure out how to manage it.
Well, things don't break at fun, appropriate times. I've never been driving down the road going, this would be a great time for a flat. But when it shows up, you just got to fix it. Anytime, anywhere, for any reason.
Thank you for fixing the flat tire. That was Lenora.
Well, I think it's time for us to jump into the topics of the week. And tonight's topics are stew, stories, and shows. It's a lot of S's. But to start this off, Holly, would you do me a favor? Remind me of what you just said a few minutes ago.
About the stonecutter, you mean?
Yeah.
Just how when you're getting to that beautiful thing, so the first level, there's kind of obvious stuff you want to cut away. But where the real drama comes in is when you're going in and you say, there's something beautiful here, but I think there's something even more beautiful underneath. And you go on in.
Go on in. And I'm going to make a mild assumption that pretty much everybody has had some form of stew. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there anybody that doesn't know what stew is, or goulash, or anything like that? It was kind of at one point a poor family meal where you would take what you had, put it in a pot, add some water, and hopefully you would come up with something digestible. And when Holly was talking about how this person would go in and go, okay, we've got the obvious stuff that we don't want. So you cut that off. And so if you got a certain cut of meat, there are certain things that you don't want in your stew. So you trim off the fat, things of that nature to a point. And you start adding things. And just because it's in the pantry or in the fridge doesn't mean that it's qualified for the stew. Some people have to learn that the hard way. Others will learn that through observation. And some may learn that through a recipe book. But that's the flexible thing about stew. If you know how to combine the things, you can make some pretty incredible stuff out of what seems like we don't have anything to eat. And this topic kind of landed on me the other day, where I've often said the quote, "It doesn't take much vinegar to ruin the punch." And it can be the same thing with stew. Little Susie loves chocolate chips. So she dumped a bunch in the stew. Now, chocolate chips are good, but not in the stew. Wrong area, wrong thought process. But sometimes when something gets into the stew, like a little too much pepper or a little too much salt, it takes experience to know, how do you counteract that? How do you fix that? How do you make it palatable without throwing everything away and starting over? And that's why I was grinning when Holly was talking about the gem cutter. Because if you cut in and you don't find what you're looking for, what do you do with what's left? How do you recover the project? How do you save the work? And sometimes in the oopsie, the outcome may be better than what was intended. I know I've told this story a couple of times before about when I very first met my wife. My wife is a baker. And for those of you that don't know, I'm a cook. My wife's a baker. I am not both. I can bake. I know how to do it, but by choice, I prefer to cook. And one day it dawned on me that the difference between cooking and baking is science, cooking is art. If you're making caramels, and I know that Lenora is a very accomplished baker, and if the recipe calls for 123 grams of this, it's 123. It's not 122, it's not 120, it's 123. If it says preheat the oven to 360, you don't put them in at 340 or 355 or 365. And you bake it for this amount of time. I, on the other hand, look at a recipe and go, yeah, I can do that. And I put the recipe away and I just start cooking. And I've had people watch me cook and it drives them bananas, especially the bakers, because I'll be a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I'll look at it and I'll stir it and I'll smell it and I'll be like, nah, it needs a little bit more. And they're like, how did you know it needed more? It needed more. It's saying to me. And sometimes you add a little bit now and you let it cook for a while, and then you add a little bit of this later. And they're like, well, didn't you add some earlier? Yes, but now it said it needed more at this time. It's kind of like music. And you can play the same tune a lot of different ways. I just heard an AC/DC song sang by a country artist, which I know the hard rock people are like, oh, sacrilege! But it was actually Cody Jinks saying it's hard way to the top if you want to rock and roll, or a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. Great cover, but a totally different feel. And I bring all this up also when we're working with clients. We're looking at the stew. There's a lot of life events in there. There's a lot of good stuff in there, but there's some stuff that just doesn't need to be in there. And we have to figure out how to help them recognize what ingredient got added that changed the food, that changed everything, and how can we fix it? Because if you've ever looked at soup and you dump something in, you don't go, oh, no, I need to take that extra splash of vinegar out. Too late. It's in there. So if you can't undo the past, you can take what is needed from it and understand you don't have to hold on to the rest. And you also learn that just because this is how grandma did it, or great grandma did it, doesn't mean that's the way you have to do it. Mom, why do we cut the ends off the ham? I don't know, because grandma always did it. Grandma, why do we cut the ends off the ham? I don't know, because great grandma always did it. Great grandma, why do we cut the ends off the ham? Because that was the only way I could get it to fit into the pan I had. And all the generations go, say what? We've been wasting ham the whole time because you couldn't afford a bigger pan? And great grandma's like, shut up, no judging. At least you had ham. So there. Any comments, ahas, epiphanies on stew so far?
I like the analogy. Very interesting.
Well, thank you. Holly.
I have several things going through my head as usual. First, just as a comment on that last thing, sometimes we think we're judging, great grandma for what she did or whatever. She never told us to do it that way. We just assumed. We didn't ask the question. I think sometimes we're so worried about judging somebody, and it's like, it's not even judgmental. We're just learning the truth. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. So don't be afraid to look at the past and say, I don't have to say the past was bad to find a better way to do it now that I've got different resources. But and then just one of the thoughts that kept coming. So two thoughts that kept coming to my mind. One is the idea that there's no ingredient that doesn't have its use in the right circumstance. So I helped I want to do it more, but I helped volunteer kind of with a group that provides food for, people who have lower income. And one of the things they do is they take everything that gets donated and they go through it, and some of it they legally can't give to people, but they have other uses. Could this go to fertilizer? Can this go to feed chickens on a farm? So it's just about matching the right ingredient to the right purpose. So it's not that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just not being used in the right way. And maybe it's a personal preference thing sometimes too. And then the other thing that it's interesting, I was thinking music when DJ was talking about music, or was talking about the food. The first thing that came to my mind, I genuinely, cooking is not something I understand at all yet. Doesn't mean I will always be that way, but it's not my strength. I was just thinking, how is it that I do my own version of cooking? And I started thinking about music, and when I'm playing the organ, and it's like, oh, you know what? I think I need a little bit more reeds there, maybe a little less reeds here, and I want more principles. It's that registering of the organ is my way of cooking. And so, we talk about jacks and queens and kings and stuff, and just because they're your 10 doesn't mean they aren't somebody else's king. And then, so sorry, I know these analogies, I swear they're going somewhere, but I have a Matthew Hussey, I think, is the first one who told me this. I've heard it from other people, but he's the first one that said it. But talks about when you're looking for mentors and teachers and your tribe, one of the things you're looking for is you're not necessarily looking for the big person who's, mastered everything. Because if you want them to help teach you, first of all, getting access to them is probably going to be impossible for you. But also, they're so far ahead of you, they may not even remember how they did something.
Yeah.
And so what you want is that person who's one step ahead of you, because they can help you the most, because they were just barely there. They know exactly how to get the next step better than anybody. So, they were saying, use the big people for inspiration. Go ahead and do that. They're not completely useless. But, if you ever are looking at, do I want to be a mentor or anything like that, everybody has a place. Everybody has a purpose. I personally believe that anybody at any stage of development can improve, has potential as long as they want to. If you just put it out there, all you need is the willingness. But you not only have the ability to grow and have mentors, but you also have the ability to be a mentor, even if you feel like you're not like that big person at the very top. You may be the right mentor for that person and the best mentor for that person, even if you're not the best mentor for everybody. And then just throwing one last one out there, let's pretend you really were, there is somebody out there that's the very best. Say, let's go with hypnosis, for example. The very best hypnotist that's ever lived, that ever will live. Can you help that person? Well, yes, because even if they're the best hypnotist that ever lived, it's a lot harder to hypnotize yourself than it is somebody else, be that passenger, that driver. So you could still be, or, they talk about like a barber, just because they're the best barber in the world doesn't mean that a pretty good barber can't help them out, because it's a lot harder to cut your own hair than it is to cut somebody else's hair, So this idea that I think it's so cool that, all these ingredients, they have their role, they have their place. It's just about finding the right fit and making sure you leverage the right fit, and you can even play around with it. And the right fit might be different on different days. And that's okay too, because you're exploring the variety, and that's a great thing.
You rock. Mark.
I think Holly covered it all, but I was.
Yeah, follow that.
Well, I will try in my own way, but it's also, again, when we're trying to work with people, we're bringing our own stew to the to the situation. So, we all have different talents, different trainings, different skill sets, because of, the path we've been on. So, and we try to, create a product or an outcome that, balances the needs of the people we're working with. But again, like any great chef will tell you, one person might love your concoction, the other might hate it. So, I come from, the history of being a strict behaviorist, and then started working with a radical psychoanalyst. And so I went about as far apart as you could possibly get on the spectrum. And then over the course of, my career, just kind of putting them together, and trying to create a product that can help the greatest number of people. But it's not for everyone, again, individual tastes, individual taste buds. So, if it, one person might think it's a, world-class creation, the other person be like, it's just not for me. So, again, different taste. It's not only the chef, it's the, the tasters, the people that give us the, again, give us the feedback that, well, you bring to the table is great, but I need to go in a different direction or something. So, it's you're not, it's not, I'm an acquired. I'll repeat that. I'm an acquired taste, to say the least. So yeah, you gotta have the but whatever you bring to the table, to help people is always, from the heart. So that's it.
And that's why if you've been around me long enough, I always tell people you have to try every type of food. How many times? 3 times. Why? Because there's bad cooks and bad ingredients. And to piggyback on what Holly was saying, when I teach Identity Management University, IMU, one of the metaphors I use is all of the ingredients that we need for different personalities that we have, that we've collected, that we've observed, all the above. If you could see them or picture them in a pantry. And just like when we're cooking, just because an ingredient is in the pantry doesn't mean it's appropriate for that place and time or recipe. That's why I constantly teach. Everybody has multiple personalities. You need to. You're not the same person Friday night at happy hour as you are Sunday morning at church, as you are Tuesday morning at the company board meeting, as you are going to meet your potential partner's parents. All of those are different ingredients in the pantry. But I have proven it enough that if somebody can describe to me or write down an idea of a different personality that they would like to have, if I can send them out of the room and have them come back and show everybody there what that personality looks like on them, they own the ingredients. They're just afraid to put it into the mix. Oh, I heard that this cayenne pepper is really good, but it's a little spicy. It's a little spicy. I don't know if I should show up. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota where Heinz ketchup has a little bit of, it got a little snap to it. You can tell it's definitely not Hunt's. Yes. You gotta reserve that for them spicy foods. Lenora.
Once upon a time, when TJ came out with IMU, I did not get to go to the conference that he was hosting, which was fantastic. I know Holly got to go and a few other people. He had walked me through the process of it. And what I will say is it was extraordinarily difficult for me because I kept thinking of how people would respond, what they would say. And even though you might want to use ingredients, you might have this fear that comes up going, well, what will they think? What will they think? And
Yes.
some of the biggest ones for me were that, oh gosh, that people would think I was stupid, that people would think I was arrogant, that people would think I was selfish. And this is the entire process of working through this was not overnight, to say the least. It was very, very interesting. I know Holly did some very cool things on her own in her own experiences. I don't know if she wants to share that or not. But really you go in and out of these situations and you're like, did I like how I was in that situation? What do I want to reflect on? So you really can try them. And that's one of the things that I like about going and meeting new people, of
Yes.
which I used to not like meeting new people because, oh my God, what do they think? But when you can practice that and show up, and even if you practice it moving around like Home Goods or Marshalls, how do you move? How do you think? Practice it and play with it in ways that feel comfortable to you. And that was something that I did not really think about. Or like if I got in a taxi and I tried something different, I wasn't going to see that person again. It was really just for me to see how it was to play with that ingredient. So if people are thinking about it or they're wondering like, man, I would really like to try this, where do I feel comfortable? And nobody in your circle feels comfortable to play with that because we might not all be on the same frequency. Try it in microdoses in ways that are functional for you, whether it's out in the store or whether it's in the mirror or in a pretend conversation. Play with the ingredients.
Yes. 100%. Thank you for bringing that up. And one of my squirrels, and disclaimer, if this is your first time on Planet TJ, squirrel. Yeah, my squirrels have squirrels that know squirrels that bring along squirrels. So at any moment in time, I could be chasing a squirrel, and one of my squirrels came up and reminded me of a little reel that I saw with Chase Hughes talking about confidence and how it's very easy to change confidence given the right circumstances. You take a standard paycheck to paycheck person and you send them into one of these ultra ritzy luxury stores, say on Rodeo Drive, where a purse is like $7,000. And you tell them that you want them to go in there and pick out a purse. And they'll walk in, and the energy and the weight on them going, they're going to know I'm a fake. They're going to know I'm just, I can't afford, oh my God, look at those prices. And of course, the staff comes over, can I help you? And they're like, kind of like that scene from Pretty Woman. Now you take the same person, same store, and you tell them, here's my platinum credit card with no limit. And I want you to go into that same store and I want you to buy the best briefcase they have. I don't care what the cost is. And that person now walks in, and the only difference is the credit card in their back pocket. And they walk in, they're walking in differently. They're looking at the product differently. When the staff approaches them, the energy is completely different. Can I help you? Yes, you can, with confidence. That ingredient was always in the pantry. What changed? The reason, the story, the way they looked at the mission. That's why I tell people there are more ingredients in your pantry than you give yourself credit for. You're just afraid of being judged for using them. I've got a couple of graduates from IMU that they, if they're going to go somewhere for gits and shiggles, they tell each other who the other person is going to be. And they improv while they're out. They have to stay in character. And they said what that did for their confidence and their ability to go anywhere and not be afraid, because they realized the amount of ingredients they have in their pantry was 30-fold what they believed they could use before. Because we get so stuck in who we think we are and who we think we have to be. That's one of the things I love about travel and living somewhere else, moving, especially when you move all by yourself, because you don't even have a friend or a spouse to go, why are you acting so weird? You just get to be whoever you want to be and show up as whoever you want to be, and that's when you find out who you really are. Any more ahas, epiphanies before we change topics? Because here I am again realizing that the time is countdown. Holly.
We'll see how fast I can get this in. So on this topic of what will people think, and to be clear, this is an area I'm really working on right now. So, take this with a grain of salt. But so two thoughts that came to me. First of all, there is a paradox that the more you care what people are going to think, the more likely they are to judge you. Because you're so focused on being outside of your head that you're not congruent in who you are. And the truth is, if you think about it, when somebody really commits to being a certain person and they're congruent with it and they enjoy it and they don't care about what anybody thinks, how much are people drawn to them?
Mm-hmm.
No matter how ridiculous it may be. But then the other thought is, who is judging you and why do you care what they think? And so I think this is a balancing act, because you could get to the point where you're like, I'm never going to care. And sometimes they have valid criticism that they should be giving me. But I'm, just the thought came to me, okay, imagine that there's somebody you really, really care about. And now imagine that they're in an abusive relationship. How do you feel about the person who's abusing the person you care about? Do you care what they think of you? Do you care about impressing them? Or do you just want to beat the crap out of them because they're hurting somebody you care about? Mm-hmm. And when we're going out with a bunch of strangers, you have no idea if they're, that amazing person that's loving, that's going to give you good feedback, that's going to help you be a better person. Or if they're the kind of person that if they got in a relationship with somebody you cared about, they'd just be an abuser. So, why do I even care what they think about me if I don't even know if they've got competency, if they've got insight, all of those things that is required to actually give good feedback?
Yeah, but 100%. And my squirrels are freaking out. They're like, look at some of the Hollywood people that we absolutely adore. Robin Williams. And, who else can we? Jack Black. Love him or hate him. You have no idea what that man is going to do. And so you can't take your eyes off him. And there's quite a freedom in that. I had a couple of good friends that I got to spend time with that you get the two of us together, and that's the personality that came out. We lived so much larger than life and laugh and didn't care. And one night we were in Yellowstone and playing pool in a big A-frame atrium. We were having so much fun. I didn't even realize until later. All of a sudden I looked up and there were people along the upper walkway watching us. There was a crowd watching us, and we were just in the groove. And I challenge all of you, find somebody that can get you to have those ingredients, have those moments. If you get to travel somewhere with somebody, try the concept of, okay, who are we going to be? Nobody here knows us. We can be lovingly boisterous and fun and loud without being too offensive, and just try it. It's actually quite fun. Which I'm going to segue right into stories. We all collect stories. I challenge anybody who says, well, I don't have any stories. I'm like, that's a story in itself. How is it you don't have any stories? Well, I'm just so boring that I just never do nothing, and I only wear gray and black every day. I eat the same thing. I have no stories. Well, that's an interesting story. The problem with stories isn't so much the ones we tell, it's the ones we hide. And our recollection and our retelling ourselves these stories, some of which, yes, they happened. Yes, you survived. Does it benefit you to keep telling them? And that's where you'll see a little pause. Even if they say, well, yeah, I mean, that made me who I am today. Well, part of it did. But it also goes back to I had a terrible day yesterday. All day? Yes, my whole day was shot. What happened? I spilled a whole gallon of milk in the morning. And it made a mess. No, I mean, and then what happened for the rest of the day? Well, that was it. So you had a bad 15 seconds and you quote unquote milked it for the rest of the day. That's quite a story. You gave yourself permission to have a horrible day because of a 15-second issue. How many people know somebody like that? You know, the other one that cracks me up, and this will probably get me a little heat from people, and that's fine. You can type your response in the comments below. Sports fanatics. My team lost. It's the worst week ever. I'm going to have a bad week. Oh my God. And everybody's going to know that quarterback sucked. And the ref, they're paying off the ref. It was a toss game. And I'm like, wow. So you took a game and milked it for the rest of the week. And if, heaven forbid, they got into the playoffs and then it happened, well, now we can, and now the team is done for the whole year. Oh my God, I'm going to have a bad month. For real? For real, real. Yes, for real. I know. Because I know a few people like that. In fact, I told a few of them, that's why I don't get into sports. I don't want that much little interaction to have that much effect on my day, my week, my month. Yes, I will watch for a little bit. I will admire the skill sets that they show. And that's about as far as I go. But the other part is the stories that we tell ourselves about what happened to us. From yesterday, from last week, from when we were 3, and oftentimes when I'm working with clients and we do regression, I've had a number of them go, wait, I thought it went differently. They had told the story so many times that the story they told didn't even match what actually happened. But they sure enjoyed the victimhood. Any input, ahas, epiphanies, being I've got 8 minutes for the, here we go again. Anybody got any? Lenora.
I find this very interesting because I think now with my perspective of how to shift my own perspective, it's much more functional and it's much more understanding. But because I was so in the emotion, I couldn't see any other alternative. I couldn't see anything else. And I absolutely was completely identified with the story, with the feeling, with the emotion that it was still happening. And the overwhelm of that emotion that was going through me really, really was quite real at the time. So now I have a much different perspective and I've done it so many times and people have guided me so many times that I can disconnect and I can start to shift it much, much easier. But I don't think people realize how it feels to be able to shift it because they're so identified with it. I think when you do this type of work, it's a totally different story. Now adding to that, a super fun fact for me, I know I mentioned that I was really empathetic at the beginning, and that's why I ended up having to call TJ, was because I was so overwhelmed by the story that was being shared with me that yes, I knew that it happened, but my heart was still breaking about that situation. So I think once we get into things that people feel they're much more emotional about or they're much more identified, or when we start to get into areas where that really it wasn't just a fight, it was violations of the body, violations of the mind, of so many things. I think it needs it for me at least, it definitely needed a different approach. And thankfully, there are people like TJ in the world who understand that that was all I could see, that was all I could understand, that was all I could comprehend, and how to work them out of that situation. Not understanding that, I was able to do that with the person that I was helping, but then I became so overwhelmed and identified with it that I couldn't get myself out. So it's quite interesting because there was something in reality transurfing that you have to be the participant and the observer at the same time. And I used to just think like, oh, I could just be the observer. I don't have to be down here and feeling all this emotion. No, that's part of the game. That's part of the experience. You don't get out of it. And how you navigate that is very, very interesting to me. I feel like this will definitely go into hour 2.
Thank you for your transparency. I appreciate that. Mark?
Well, real quick, stories that we hear from other people. Like I said, if we have uh, a a similar story in our history, that's when those memories pop up because there's almost like it's almost like sonar. It goes down and it and it hits that memory in the subconscious, and it's almost like a ping, like when you're like the submarines are using sonar, and that's when those feelings come up, those memories come up because because it's being pinged by what someone else is telling us. But you know, um, I like stories. Like I said, the 5 most powerful words in the English language are "Let me tell you a story," so they can be, because it bypasses judgment, and when you can tell a story that gives somebody an insight or whatever. But yeah, like I said, that sometimes we get, we lose that therapeutic distance, that we're all supposed to have, but being human, that we dance on each side of that line sometimes. So,
Very much so. And with that, I've got 4 minutes left. I may run over my time a little bit with your guys' permission. But this is for the empaths, especially the super empaths out there. Shows.
Need a medal or something.
Well,
May cry if the wind blows the wrong way. Good luck, depending on where she is. That's what, I need the shirt that says that.
well, that's where I came up with as I've become known as Metaphor Man. The metaphor of shows. When we're working with people, or you're helping somebody, we've all been in that situation. We've heard these horrible stories and our heart bleeds for those people, and we want to help. But the fact that they can still tell you the story means they've survived it. It doesn't mean that it's not still affecting them, but they're still alive. That means that we have the ability to, or a chance, not always the ability, but we have a chance to help them. But we cannot take their energy and their story on and make it our own. And the metaphor I came up with is just like watching a movie or a show, and there can be something very disturbing in the movie or the show that rocks us, like, but we have to realize the actor lived. And we're not, no matter how angry or disturbed we get, it's their show. We're just watching it. We're observing it. And I hate to ask, but Lenore, how did I put that?
How did you put the metaphor, or
No,
that I need to?
We have to, I know you wrote it down too, because you write all these down.
Yeah.
We have to watch it, fix it.
Find it, fix it, and report it.
Yes.
Yes.
Find it, fix it, report it, and then do our debrief and let it go. That's why law enforcement, military, all those people that deal with horrible stuff like this, you have to disassociate yourself from the other situation. Find it, fix it, and be able to move on. Wish them the best, offer the help, but don't take it home with you. Watch the movie, but you're not the one that got blown up. It was a movie. When you're dealing with clients, it was their movie. Yes, they starred in it. And
Oh, you looking for supper?
state change. And sometimes we need that.
Hey, what type?
If you click the three dots, TJ, you can put him on mute. If you like go over his name and three dots appear.
We all needed that. We were into a heavy subject.
We were in a heavy subject.
And the best part is we got to end out the hour on a good giggle. Anybody got anything they want to add to shows or the whole, any of the topics, Stu's stories or shows? Well, then, as promised, for those of you watching for the first time, this is when we change pace, and anybody on the call gets to bring up a topic, ask a question. I let anybody on the call answer first because I like to learn as well. And this is my invite to you if you're watching the recording or if you're out there on YouTube, please join us. You don't even have to know how to spell NLP. We love having people on here. We love to hear your side and hear your questions. So who wants to start off hour number 2? Who's got a question? Holly, right out of the gates. Awesome.
So this is a question that it fits in so much with what we were talking about earlier. I'm interested to see how that comes together too. But so I was watching a podcast with Jordan Peterson and Andrew Huberman. I always say his name wrong. And they were talking about, so this applies to people and it also applies to our personalities, the people that we have on stage, our ingredients, whatever you want to call them. And so Andrew Huberman said basically he was talking about inhibiting the bad ones. And Jordan Peterson turned that around and said, what if it's not about, he didn't say it in these exact words, but basically, what if it's not about inhibiting bad ones, but integrating personalities, whether it's inside yourself or people in a society, so both levels, integrating them so that they are in their proper place, they're more useful, they're more respected, whatever it may be. So I guess my questions are, first of all, does that ring true that it are there times when it's better to inhibit, or is it usually more about integrating? And if it is about integrating, like what are because inhibiting is easy to do. Well, but he said, inhibition is the first level that you do. It's kind of like the immature version. If you don't have other things because you've got something dangerous that you've got to, crush down. So, but yes, if it is true, what are the ways that you integrate, or if inhibition inhibits so that they, it doesn't like build up so that it's going to spill over. So hopefully that question makes sense.
Yeah.
Interested to hear what everybody has to say.
Who's got an answer for Holly?
I'm very intrigued. For pieces of personality, do we have a specific example?
I mean, I could give one example is this is one that I think clearly is more about integration, but violence, for example. And maybe not violent. Let's get something a little bit higher level. Let's just say anger.
Okay.
So, are there times when it's better to integrate your anger rather than inhibit your anger? Are there proper roles for it? If so, how do you make sure it has its proper role? What's the difference between inhibiting it versus not inhibiting it? Just as an example.
Oh, the irony. For me, especially when it comes to anger, I don't necessarily think it doesn't need to be expressed. I think it can be expressed in a very specific way, in a very healthy way, especially when we know the techniques or we do the work that we do. There have been times where people would absolutely, like, if I asked for somebody's insight, they'd be like, you don't have to be angry about that. Like, get over it. It's no big deal. But I was pretty angry about it. So I found a way to use it, amplify it, alchemize it in a specific way. I think one of the most beautiful things about the mind is that when you can move judgment aside and say it's a no holds bar, if you're upset and you want to use it, you can use your mind and you can get that energy moving in any direction that you want. I think that is your right, and that is also your opportunity to really learn how angry you can be, how far of an extreme you can be, but also how you can then still be in your light. Because I don't think I would be, if I didn't figure out how to manage and how to understand and how to be aware of my anger, I don't think I would be as nice as I am. I think I would probably be very leaky. I think that'd be a very good word. Leaking your energy, leaking your anger, leaking your emotion all over the place. So I think all your emotions, whether somebody else thinks they're warranted or not, it doesn't matter. I think it's only if you think it's warranted, how do you use it? How can you amplify it and alchemize it? I'm not sure if that answered your question, but those are my thoughts on it.
That was great.
Okay.
Anybody else got an answer? Because my squirrels are jumping around like crazy. No? Two things popped up as soon as you asked that. One is straight out of IMU, because we have so many personalities. And I know you guys have heard this from me many times before, but for the people who are watching for the first time, is killing strangers a bad personality trait?
It depends.
It does, because if you're in battle, in war, I want the person next to me to have a good full dose of that personality to save my butt, both of us. But take that same personality trait and put them into a movie theater. Wrong place, wrong time. No. And so in regards to anger, I point out, is energy. And it's a very powerful energy, as we know. And it's when you recognize it as such, as just energy, which is typically connected to what? Stories. I got a story in my head, and it made me angry, and I have all this energy. Well, whose story was it? And even if it happened to you, it's still a story. And there are a lot of different ways to get rid of the energy, but if you have the opportunity to utilize the energy for good, that's where the transformation really sets in. I learned this at a young age. If I can keep my focus right, I can get an awful lot of work done when I'm angry. And now ladies, I'm not talking about all of you, but I've seen some ladies clean a house when they're angry. Woo! That house, Mr. Clean ain't got nothing on an angry lady when it comes to cleaning house. She can take that anger and that house gets cleaned top to bottom, inside out. The refrigerator comes out. Even the in-wall stove gets moved because there's dust in there. And a smart person will just back off and be there for support. Quiet support. I need more water. More water coming. More water coming.
I love Michael laughing over there.
Because I'm sure there's a couple
Looks a
of
lot like he kind of relates.
You guys can't tell me that you didn't have a moment in your life where mom had a little tiff and it was time to clean the house. Woo! But anger is an energy. And we have to decide how much we want to own it and what we want it to do to us or for us. There are a couple of movies I can't watch because they just make me so angry. And I'm like, it was just a movie. Oh, just a movie. I'm not going to watch that movie again because it's so bad.
I love that when you do that, you sound just like Joe Pesci from Home Alone.
Thank you. Michael.
Complete dead on.
And he's got the height.
Yes.
Poor Joe Pesci doesn't.
Yeah. No, I'm just, anyway. I was gonna say along those lines, I used to play a silly game called Grand Theft Auto. And I had to stop playing it because it has no repercussions.
Yes.
So you can just go and rip somebody out of their car. You can go and blow up a police station, do all kinds of crazy things, and there's no repercussions. You hide for a minute, and then you're safe. And I would play for hours, and then I would go driving, and I would have traffic, and I would have like, oh my God, I could just do this. I could just... Tranquilo.
Tranquilo.
No more Grand Theft Auto. Let that go.
I watched, when I took care of college rental homes, I watched those college kids play all of those, Grand Theft Auto and Spec Ops and games that I didn't even know the names for, but yeah, and I'm like, what are you guys getting out of this other than anger? Oh, it's fun, man. I'm like, yeah, I know. I just watched you kill 980 people.
Yeah.
And yeah, no surprise that road rage has gone up. And of course, the makers of Grand Theft, oh, that has nothing to do with with our game. It's just a game. I'm like, yeah. I watched it a couple of times, and then with some of the add-ins they put in, where you can do other unspeakable things.
Yep.
Whew. Mark.
Yeah, I think that, again, a lot of these games and stuff, and like I said, again, dealing with emotion, but the valid question is, are you escaping to, or are you escaping from?
Yes.
Okay, because if you're escaping from, that's unhealthy. If you're escaping to, I still play a game from the 80s. Go in there, kill a couple of billion aliens, take over the universe. And when I pull my head out of the game, I'm good, but I'm escaping to, an alternate, and reality rather than escaping from my current circumstances. So it's all your intent. Are you escaping to, or are you
Yes.
escaping from?
Great point. Great point. And I thought it was so funny when I had my photography studio. I had one of the bigger, was basically the biggest computer monitor I could afford at the time, which, about like that, which by today's standards. But I remember my girlfriend's grandkids came over and they saw that computer and they're like, oh, can we play a game on it? I went, I don't have any games on it. And they're like, wait, what? Wait. No, no, like a computer game. Like you don't play games on your computer? No. And I just watched their poor little energies just shrink. They're like, you're weird. But when I explained to them that I haven't figured out how to make any money by playing games on a computer, and then I showed them, if you want this, I've got a lawnmower out there. If you push that lawnmower around my yard the right way for an hour, you get this. If you play a game on the computer for an hour, you owe me money because it's my computer. You know how I bought the computer? By not playing games on the computer, but by doing stuff out there. And they were like, okay, that don't sound like fun. I said, welcome to adulthood. Yay! Stories. And I forgot to ask, Holly, did you find the answers you were looking for, or you still?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll be through that for quite a while, I'm sure. But yes, I got a lot of great answers. Thank you.
Cool. Well, that means we're ready for another question. Who got another question? Mark.
I need to tap into the female psyche of the ladies here to get feedback on this question, because again, something Peterson had in one of his podcasts. He mentioned a study where they took a dozen guys and put them in a room and took away all their devices and asked them to just think for an hour. And when they surveyed them afterwards, as you might expect, what they thought about was, sports and sex. And when they asked the ladies what they had done for that hour, just sitting by themselves and thinking, they said that they had been, how did he put it? He said that they reported that they were replaying conversations in their head for that hour. And I added in probably seeking meaning from those conversations. So I just wanted a little feedback from the ladies. Is that what you guys would do if you had to just sit and think for an hour? That's my question.
I didn't know Polly was going to pop up first. I'll go first. I would say it would depend on where I was. Now, if you had asked me at 23, yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest things would be also that I didn't have fast enough comebacks, as in I could not speak up fast enough for myself, or I didn't have one in the hat ready to go. And people would say something to me and I didn't know what to do. So for example, and this didn't happen when I was 23. This one in particular that stands out in my head happened in a buffet line when I was 33, and somebody made a comment about my food that I
That
had
was last
chosen.
week.
Aw, you're so sweet. I turned 40 last week.
Oh.
Somebody made a comment about my food and how I eat. And I didn't know what to do. Like, you might as well have slapped me. There was so much like freeze. There was no fight. There was no fight. There was just freeze. And the person had walked away. And after that, I replayed it for months in my head. And TJ's laughing because he knows this exact, because he saw me when I was that young and what a hot mess I used to be. We're much cleaner up, much improved. But yes, I would replay a conversation, or I wish I was faster to respond. So now that leads me to this story. Over the weekend, I was visiting and somebody had made a comment about me, and the first thing I had said was, "That's what you think about me?" And it stopped them in their tracks, and they had actually reframed and recalibrated and rethought the entire thought process because they stopped at the first thing. And not only did I have no problem saying that, I also had one in the hat. I just did not feel like offering it at that point in time. It was not necessary. Was it going to help the conversation, or was it just going to, like, give my ego a little bit of a boost? And it just wasn't necessary. So I kept it, and all I said was, "That's what you think about me." And they reframed the entire perspective for themselves. That's all I had to say. So now if I had sat back and I was like, what else do I want to think about today? So I would say it depends on where you are in space and time and your mood. So I don't know if that answers your question, Mark, but your emoji face is very hysterical right now.
Holly.
I definitely relate a lot to everything Lenora just said. Yeah, the first thing that came into my mind is a lot of it would depend on, what mood I'm in, what's just been going on in my life recently, what age you grab me at. One thing I need to preface this with is I do believe I'm on the autism spectrum, which is going to color the way that my thought processes work, I'm sure. As I'm thinking about it, though, almost no matter what, sometimes I am going through conversations, but not always. Most of the time when I'm with my thoughts, alone with my thoughts, I am problem solving is the common theme I'm realizing, because I had to go through several. So it might be problem solving in that I'm thinking about an interaction that went really, really poorly, and I'm playing it over and over in my head to try to figure out what would have been the better way to say this. I might replay 15 different scenarios, playing all the different people and having, okay, well, if I were in their shoes, what would I have said? Okay, knowing them, would they say something different than me? Oh, what else might they have said? So I definitely will play those conversations. But I can also tell you, I've spent, I really think a lot about systems, for example. So, if I could be in charge of the transit system, what would I do differently? How would I make this work now that I've actually run it? Who should I talk to find out the answers to this? If I were, president of the United States, what would I do in order to fix this and this and this and this? Or if I were king for a day, or, if I went back in time. So I would play a lot. When I was younger, I really wanted to be a writer. And so, I would play through these conversations, but a lot of times it would be fictional things. And so I had these really elaborate kind of imagination things where I would meet characters in fiction, and then or maybe famous scientists, famous writers, whatever, and I would have full conversations in my head with them of, okay, Sherlock Holmes, if I were writing this mystery story, how would you approach it? Okay, Poirot, how would you approach it? So it's a little weird to say this out loud, but so it and my dad was a physicist, so I'd watch a lot of the Mechanical Universe, and so I'd have these I'd hear how Galileo discovered something, and then I'd be like, oh, that would be cool. What if I met Galileo? I wonder what he'd say about this. Or Isaac Newton, he's a little bit on the edge. Okay, if he wanted to answer this question, what would he do? And so I would have, I am imagining these conversations, but they're not with people I've ever actually met necessarily. And they aren't necessarily going to be making a heck of a lot of sense, because obviously not, having met them and not having certain knowledge bases, it's going to be, it can get weird. Let's just put it that way. But sometimes I might be looking for meaning, but often I'm looking, to solve a problem. How could I help with homelessness? How could I help with, inventing a solution to this problem? How could I create a better product? How could I be a better friend? So lots of different areas in my life that I'm looking to solve those problems in. But that's problem solving orientation might be a bit more masculine in its energy. I don't know.
Well, one caveat, they were college age students that did this study. But from the other side of the fence, that's what we think about ourselves. A lot of the time when we're, at that age. So we're not, as I was intrigued at the difference of the, the male female schism, that I don't know. So I had to ask, is that something that women do, so.
Well,
Thank you for your answers. They were very, give me, like I said, a greater insight. And
I feel like now we need that shooting star. It's like the more you know.
well, you're, again, I tell bag on men all the time, and we're shallow as a puddle, and
Oh, I would never say
and,
that about you or anybody in
well,
this group or any of the very few men that I know. What I call shallow as a puddle. Not like anybody.
about as knowledgeable in relationships as a bag of rocks. That's
You've
just
learned
general.
stuff.
That's just the population in general. We're not talking about this group. Not even a little bit.
Aw.
there is something that I'd heard about, and I'm completely guilty as well of, I should have said this. Oh, I did. I should. And you go back and you rehash those conversations and all of the great comebacks you could have had, until I heard a interesting description of what that is. They called it rehearsing lines for a movie that you will never be in. You're spending all that time, all that energy, all that thought process, and you're rehearsing, and the movie not only are you not going to be in the movie, it's not even going to be produced. It's over. It's too late. But the upside to doing that, I've found, if you find a couple of really good replies and you've rehearsed them in your head enough, all of a sudden the script comes along and that line fits right in, and you're like, take that. Michael.
That's like Lenora having something in her hat. You got to practice. You got to be ready.
Well,
Well, here's the caveat. You can so yes, to that extent. And I do think that there's sometimes where it's good to have it. I've been known to get a little carried away with it, and I will put myself in a bad mood having an entirely fake fight with a person that probably this fight will never occur with. And then I have to literally stop, because this has happened before, while I'm putting my makeup on in the morning and going, why are you even thinking about this? They're not even here. Like, stop it immediately.
Yes.
So, pros and cons.
That happened to my wife. She was dreaming that I did something wrong.
I hate when that
She woke up
happens.
and she's in a bad mood saying, I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Well,
You wake
in
up
my
and you're like, I'm
dream,
mad at you.
did this. I'm like, oh, no.
Totally.
Yes. Same here. Got in trouble for something that happened while I was sleeping. Holly.
I'm just going to throw this in. I might get myself in trouble saying what I'm about to say, but just a couple things. So first of all, this one won't get me in trouble, but I think it's also important to realize I've always believed that the variety in society and the way we approach life at any given point, if a lot of people are doing it, there's a reason for it and there's a value to it. And so, just because something sounds shallow doesn't necessarily mean it's quite as shallow as it is. I think it's all about balance. There's a reason it's there, but there's also a reason we're supposed to grow beyond it, if that makes sense. So it's okay to say, yes, I want to grow beyond it, but that doesn't mean we have to poo-poo or, denigrate anything that we've evolved to become, if you want to say it that way, or that we were created to be, if you want to say it that way. But I was just going to say, this is the one that's probably get me in trouble, but I did read a study once that said that, this is just specifically thinking about, sports and sex kind of thing is where this comment sent me. They discovered that women actually go through phases depending on where they are in their cycle. And there are points where women actually will think more about sex than men do. So it's just the amount that they do it varies depending on where they're at in their moment. So we might pretend there's a lot of differences, but there may not be quite as many differences as we sometimes think there are.
Well said, Holly.
You heard it here on Triple T.
Yeah, I had a dream one night that I cheated on my wife, and I was so distressed by the dream I had to wake her up and tell her. She that was a dream, right? She's like, go to sleep. But I had to wake her up to tell her about the dream.
We're going to let that sink in for a little bit. And here's another one for the again, super empaths and dealing with people who can absolutely say the stupidest and absolutely send you into fury, and they're over it. They're just like that dog that has that little fence fight with the other dog and shakes it off and then goes and lays down. And meanwhile, they've torqued us off so much and dumped so much energy into I had a friend who I finally learned that if he started into that, I just went, I'm sorry, I can't take this on right now. I'm going to hang up. Go dump on somebody else. Well, and I went, dude, you're going to be over it in 2 minutes. And it will take me 2 weeks of fighting in my head with your stupid comments before I might get over it. It's not fair to me. So if you're here just to pick a fight because you are having a bad day, Go pick a fight. Go to the zoo and pick a fight with a bear. I'm done. I'm done. Well, I'm never going to talk to you again. I know. Talk to you tomorrow. Click. And I had to learn that the hard way because of the amount of time he took up residence in my head with energy that just kept torquing me off. And I should have said this, and I should have said that, and got a lot done though. Mark.
Where the work comes from. Something you had said earlier, and I just wanted to circle back to it, is if you ever, and I don't know if this is true for the ladies, but if you ever have friends that, oh, you've heard all the stories 25,000 times, and they circle around the same 15 or 20 stories, that you could actually do them verbatim, okay? And this person is not in my circle anymore, but yeah, he just kept telling the same stories over and over until we were like ready to scream. And you know, like, we've heard this 1,000 times. Stop, you know. But they just keep doing it.
If I may jump in, I'm so glad you brought that up because I had to gloss over stories because we invested some really good time on Stu. But learning how to tell stories well is a great asset. Being a really good storyteller is such an amazing asset. And for some, it comes naturally. There are some people that can tell a story and instantly everybody is like, and then you got other people. I had somebody in my life once who way too much detail. Like, even engineers were like, they'd check, you would check out halfway into the movie or into the story. And I had to help them out. And they were offended at first, but I went, please. They would go into describing a story, and they would be talking about grass, and they'd be like, well, you know, the grass that, you know, the grass, and it had some of the yellow in there, but then, you know, like some of it was dead, so you had a little bit of brown in there, and some of it was really healthy, you know, but then you had like dandelions and stuff, and so you'd have a little bit of yellow, and then a couple of, well, you know, and I'm like, so you're saying the grass was green? Well, yeah. That's enough. And sometimes you need the detail, but sometimes the grass is green is enough information. And we've joked about this a little bit before about man talk. And Bill Engvall does a great story on man talk. About he comes home and says, well, I just heard that Bill and Sue are getting divorced, and his wife was like, oh my goodness, oh well, what happened? Oh, who cheated? What? And he's like, they're getting a divorce. That's all I know. Well, Yeah, you don't even know the story? Like, what are the details? He's like, that's all I heard. 3 days later, she comes rushing home. Oh my goodness, I found the story finally, and now this and this, and back in kindergarten, and then they met on Facebook, and she tells a 10-minute story, and he goes, so they're still getting a divorce? Well, of course. That's all I needed to know. And yet, me telling that story, there's still learning how to tell it. There are really good storytellers, and it just I can't think of a gentleman from Minnesota. Mr. Verigi could probably help me out on this one, but Tales from Lake Wobegon, I believe. Garrison Keeler, I believe, may have been a storyteller. Or Paul Harvey. What an amazing storyteller Paul Harvey was. And yet, if you study Paul Harvey's history, he learned to articulate the way he talked because his mother was hard of hearing. And he created his style of storytelling through some of the work that he did. And so even in the work that we do, we sometimes have to listen to people's stories and then disassemble them, rewrite them a little bit, and hand them back to the author and go, is this a better story? Do you like this version better? And see how it lands. Any comments on that?
I do like those insights. Disassemble it, shift it. Good stuff.
Holly.
I don't even necessarily know where I'm going with this comment, but I had this thought because for those who don't know, the structure of a belief is basically a combination of complex equivalence and cause and effect, and you need both halves to know the full belief. But I was just thinking that's also kind of the structure of a story as well, just done at a higher level. So I don't necessarily know, but the full thing I believe about it, but basically stories are exploring beliefs is kind of the thought that's coming to my mind. There's probably more to it than that, but I just thought that was interesting because if we could change our beliefs, then we could change our story and we could change how we respond to it. We could change its meaning, all that. But and for those who don't know what complex equivalence it is, that is meaning. Basically, you're assigning something meaning. So I was just thinking that's interesting that the story is the way that we can change the complex equivalence or the cause and effect, which changes the belief.
Mike.
Hey, late to the party, but I'm glad to get in.
Glad you're here, brother.
It's interesting listening to people talk because it is a glance into their own world and how they process and how their views and how they jump to conclusions or how they process the information or how they, you know what I mean? And it's that part that helps you understand them, a glimpse into their own mind and their own world, their insecurities, their hopes and dreams, their energy and their lack of energy. So individuals like myself, there's times when I have difficulty speaking. Doesn't mean that I'm dumb, hopefully, but but it gives us that opportunity to share in that moment with them, if that makes sense, and giving them grace for what they are going through. And yeah, I guess that's good. So thanks.
And thank you for sharing that, because one thing that popped up is the importance for people, especially with who find it challenging for speaking. There are so many opportunities and venues out there. There's Toastmasters, there's improv classes, there's stuff like I Teach IMU, and even like Vin On, when he's teaching about stage presence and speaking, he lets us know that our voice is a very multifaceted instrument. And typically we only play like 3 or 4 or 5 notes out of the 70 that we can use. And so if you find speaking challenging, a lot of it is going to be tied to the stories that you've told yourself and the people around you that remind you of who you are, even if that may not be all that you want to be. If you try to be more, what do they do? Who are you trying to be? This is who you are. Again, that's why I love travel and moving around. You get to find out what your potential is. Any other ahas on that? Mark?
One little input about that. I used to admire my cousins. They could, they had a guitar, and there was like 6 or 7 of them, and they all learned the same 6 chords, and they could play any song with just those 6 chords. And so, like you said, people sometimes they get, stuck in their own, way of relating to, and they can translate anything into they could play any song. All they knew was about 6 or 7 chords.
Yeah. Especially if they're not afraid to try other songs. You look at some of the session musicians, studio musicians, who weren't even really in a band. The Swampers down in trying to remember what state they were in, I think Mississippi, but the Swampers, they played on so many albums that everybody would recognize, but you never knew who they were. You never got to know the Swampers. And Leonard Skinner, in one of their songs, even refers to them because of the amount of music they would come down. And it was funny because a lot of the bands, even like the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson would go to these session musicians and say, this is the song that I have in mind, and I want you to play it. And the rest of the band was so offended, and they're like, "What? Why aren't we playing?" You'll see in just a minute. And the Swampers would knock out this song, and even the other guys in the band were like, wow, How we well, that was cool. Can you teach us how to do it? And they would learn how to play the song so that they could perform it live. But it was the Swampers who are on the album recording. So who can we get to help us find our voices? I know that our wonderful Fran has helped enough people find their voices. Yes, you have. Give yourself credit. You earned it. You deserve it. Welcome. We got 10 minis left. Who's got another topic question? Finish it out. And for those of you watching for the very first time or watching the recording for the first time, this is usually where the 45-minute question comes in. We're like, oh, that's an awesome question. And the answer will only take us about 45 minutes, and we got 9 minutes left.
Well, coming in on the tail end of, I think, speaking in public, my apologies for not being here earlier, but does anybody try not being themselves while they're talking and maybe becoming somebody else for the duration of what they need to do?
Great question. Okay, kids. Who's got an answer for Fran? Holly.
I do have an example of an event where I decided to become somebody else for the duration of the event. So I went to a filming of a pilot, a TV pilot. Somebody that I follow was doing a pilot that was somebody else anyway. So we went there to be supportive. And I just decided I was going to go and be the party person who's, showing off and playing around and dancing. And, it was the weirdest thing because everybody there bought into that character and I didn't think I could do it. And I will tell you the moment that I knew I had really bought into the character, before this, I was the person that's like, I don't dare dance. Everybody's going to make fun of me. I'm just the one that sits on the sidelines. And anyway, so they'd bring out this warm up guy and he'd tell jokes and then try to get us to dance. And, I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to go for it. And I was dancing during one of the breaks and I just kind of felt the energy of the room shift. And I'd gone with a few friends. And all of a sudden, I just knew the whole room was looking at us. And I thought it was us. And it turns out it wasn't us. It was me. So the entire room turned around to watch me dance. And I am the person that before this was the person who never participated, never danced. So it just blew my mind that I could go from being that one person to that other person. And everybody in that room thought that's who I was. It was kind of cool, but also a little overwhelming as well. So, but I definitely love that I did it and I would do it again in a heartbeat.
I want to point out something really quick and everybody on the call can validate. Holly, did you hear the energy shift in just recalling that story?
Wow.
That validates how important it is for you to continue to utilize that personality. Get those ingredients out of your pantry. Stop being afraid to use them. You're absolutely adorbs when you are in that. I've caught glimpses of that a number of times.
I'm going to suggest a challenge that we all even try and find little moments where we can do a Holly transformation just in a small contained time frame, because it's quite tiring. But it's so exhilarating and it changes everybody else's energy. Wow, Holly, that is so cool.
Yes. Mark.
Yeah, I went through identity at by design and never quite mastered the rock star persona until the second time I was at hypno thoughts, and because I couldn't think of an avatar to step into. And while we were doing the training, I settled on Frank Sinatra, big blue, blue eyes, and I really just stepped out of my comfort zone, and I was walking, and this was during COVID and the beginnings of COVID. But I literally like stepped into that avatar so fully. I was walking around, didn't have a mask on, security probably, and I just had the energy and they were like, oh, I'm not going to mess with him. He looks like he's somebody, and they never bothered me. I didn't wear a mask. And to the point where I went to Bernie's birthday party, always seems to fall during hypno thoughts. And there was somebody there who had been sitting next to me earlier in the day, and they didn't recognize me. My energy had shifted that much. They like introduced themselves to me, and I'm like, yeah, we met this morning about 9 o'clock, but I still had the leftovers of that energy. And that's how that's how I mastered that rock star, pillar of power. So
I remember that. That's why I tell people, if you can pretend, if you can act out a personality, you own all the ingredients. All the ingredients are in your pantry. If you can get over the fear, over the discomfort, over the newness of what these ingredients do, that what this mask is, what this personality is, you can have a lot of fun.
And it's sometimes easiest to do where you don't know the people, where the people
Yes.
don't know you, because you're selling something that they don't know. You can become your alter ego just for a little while and have a lot of fun with it. There's no real accountability if you're in a place with people you don't know. And they have a lot of fun with you as well because of what you're bringing to the party. You're becoming more. And it's, challenge everybody, even if it's a 5-minute span, even if it's going to the supermarket. Just be your alter ego for 5 minutes and just play and let other people have fun with it too.
And give it a name. When I was doing working with Dr. David, and when I did Identity Management University, I'm like, people would have so much trouble trying to act it out until I gave them a specific name and a role. Even when we were doing word salad, and they were trying to use these specific words in an acting, and I said, okay, you're trying to pull it out, but you don't have any basis there. What's your outcome? Pretend you're a pirate. Your name is One-Eyed Jack, and you're sailing into a storm. And all of a sudden, these people that couldn't put two words together also like, "Hey, matey, look, off on to the horizon. We've got to." And I'm like, ta-da. They finally found the storyline. They picked a name, and they could step right in and grab all the ingredients they needed. It's kind of like, I need you to make something to eat, and you stare in the pantry, and you're like, and trust me, been there many, many times, until somebody says, "I'm hungry for chili," and all of a sudden you're like, "Chili! Okay, we got this, we got this, we got this, we got this, we got this." Boom, and you're on it. And I love your challenge, friend. Go out and have fun, especially when people don't know who you are. And if it fits so good, if it becomes so fun and so comfortable, introduce that to the people that do know you. And when they try to shove you back in that box, you can go, I am sorry, matey. I no longer fit in the box. It's much too small. You can either run with me or against me. Holly.
Make this fast. If you want a distinct way that you could do this too, just get a bunch of little pieces of paper, write a bunch of compliments, like, I love your smile, I love your hair, that sort of thing, and go out and see if you could sneak it into people's pockets. You will be amazed at the energy and the personalities that come out as you're attempting that challenge.
Yes. Amazing idea. I've even watched the videos where the guy just has them all wrinkled and walks right up to people and just hands it to them and just keep walking. And they've got the camera on the people that receive them. And you watch them and they're like, they open it up, you're amazing. And they're like, where'd he go? But they keep smiling. It's easy to make people smile. Much easier than you think it is. Mark.
Real quick. One of my squirrels said, ooh, you could go to the reunion on Friday and pretend to be a super spy.
Or the other quick one is flirt with everyone. Flirt with dogs, flirt with people on the checkouts, flirt with everybody. They feel wonderful. Be really exuberant and special for them. Make them feel special, and you will feel special.
Yes, that was one of the things that I told my wife when we first met. I said, just so you know, I flirt with everybody. Yes, I flirt with women ages 4 months to 104. And I do it because I want them to smile. I want them to feel better about their day. I just want to amp up their energy. And at first she was a little concerned, but she watched me and I'm like, I flirt with your mom. I am not after your mom. But I sure make her giggle, don't I? And so in closing, you can add all of these things into your stew. You're the cook. You've got all the ingredients in the pantry, more than you think you do. So analyze your stories and don't let them hold you back. And remember, other people's stories are shows. You are not obligated to take on their stories or their energies or their issues. Find it, fix it, send them on their way. Thanks again for showing up. I really appreciate you guys. 176 today.
Thank you for hosting. Thank you, everyone.
Love you all. Oh, I forgot 2 things. Thank you for offering up your precious commodity of time. I will always respect that. I adore it. I appreciate it. And also, for those of you on YouTube, love you, Mom. Have a great night. Have a great week. Hope to see you back here in 7.
Have fun. Adios, everybody.